If you haven't seen A Legend is Born, the Schechter and Schmo Detective Agency, or Detective Schechter for short, make sure to check that video out before watching this one, because today I'm going to talk to you about the making of that video. So back in March, I was in a group chat with Zach, Hannah, and Adina. I had to do research for a project on the Pan American Hotel that got turned into a shelter. So I tried calling someone to conduct more research, but I got their answering machine. Since they didn't pick up, I started making a grilled cheese, but then they called me back. I left the grilled cheese alone while I talked on the phone with that person for 5 minutes. I came back and my grilled cheese was completely black on one side. And so Zach says, wow, that grilled cheese is burnt. And for some weird reason, that sparked a whole big idea. We do a video about Zach being a detective that is also just sort of like Captain Obvious. And that's where the whole opening segment comes from.
I've solved it.
Really?
Yes. He's dead.
What?
He's incredibly super duper dead.
So I was in another class and it was all about making shorts. If you've seen Where's the Money, Josh, which is a silent short / chase scene, that was done for that class. The final project in that class had to be either a documentary or a mockumentary. And a mockumentary, for those of you who don't know, that's a fictional comedy that is done in documentary style. I took that idea of Zach being a detective. I decided to propose a script, and I stayed up real late working on the final draft for my script. The professor hands me back my script for Detective Schechter, and I'm thinking I'm gonna have to propose a brand new idea because she's gonna think it's weird, she's gonna think it's crazy. This is a learning institution. They're not gonna let me do something so silly and ridiculous. She took one look at me and she said, this script is beautiful and I can't wait to see how this turns out. For this class, it all had to be shot on a Canon XA something. I can't really remember what it was, but they were Canon cameras that the school provided. I had to take the camera from the school, and there's all this processing and this paperwork that goes behind it. It's not a ton of paperwork, but there's a lot of rules, and one of the rules is that you could not have the camera more than once a week. We had to shoot Detective Schechter once a week, and I think I had about 2 months to shoot it and edit it. We would get together during our lunch breaks on Mondays or Wednesdays, and if need be, after class. I know there was one day on a Wednesday, I was done for the day at 3 and I stayed until 6 because I wasn't done shooting. I had to get together with them later in the day. Something I think is really interesting about Detective Schechter and that script is that a ton of that was improv. I wrote about a 10-page script, and for the most part, people stuck to the script, except for Zach, which is quite ironic. He wanted to stay within the gist of it, and I appreciated that. And of course, being the director, I didn't let him turn away from the story I was trying to tell, because there were certain things he said in character, he did on camera, that I said, no, we're not doing that, we gotta shoot that again. There were a lot of things that were off script, a lot of things that were improv, and they worked out fabulously. And I think a big reason for that is because not only is Zach funnier than me, but I wrote this character, I wrote this script specifically with Zach in mind. It was for Zach. The fact that he improv'd a lot of it, I think, added a lot more, and it made it better. I think probably one of the best lines in the whole video is when he's in the car with Matt.
Say, how much mileage does this thing get? Want to go to Vegas? I just came into some more money.
Do you want to go to Vegas? That's a line I wrote. What I didn't write, I just came into some more money. And that's probably one of the funniest lines in the entire thing. The funniest things in this whole short were not scripted. Probably one of the better scenes is when Zach's character trips over all those chairs, and the chairs are just sliding all about the place, and they're making the loudest noise in the world. And then Joey jumps over the table and just flings a few chairs behind him. None of that was scripted. I was trying not to laugh when we were recording that, but that was fantastic. That's probably the best part in the whole short. When we shot that, I was horrified that someone was gonna walk in and be like, what are you kids doing? Because that is a classroom in a school, and there were employees and there were people in the building. So the fact that no one came in, that was a godsend. The scene where Zach is grilling Hannah, there were a lot of questions that didn't get included. That was all done on the spot. There's a part where Hannah said he came in and just asked me random questions for 10 minutes. And so Zach says, what if we actually shoot that, and when she's done talking, we just cut to that? I'm like, that's a great idea. it because I know you're going to ask a bunch of ridiculous questions and it's going to be good. So let's do that.
When was the last time you pet a llama?
No, wait, don't waste your good questions.
When was the last orthodontist appointment you didn't go to? What is the length and girth of your earlobe?
This is the most crazy interview I've ever had with a detective.
Oh, so there have been others.
Yeah.
How do you think that makes me feel?
Of course, I am responsible for the writing, for the production, for the editing, but this is not all me. As opposed to a lot of other videos, the genius behind it is really Zach and Joey. They were the geniuses behind this. They just brought a lot to the table that wasn't planned ahead of time and was just thought of on the spot, and it's really good. This is one of the few times that I use Adobe Premiere. I usually use Final Cut Pro. I've been using Final Cut X for the past 3 or 4 years now. And just like the cameras at school, you had to use Adobe Premiere. I had to take out time. I had to bring an external hard drive to school, plug it into a school computer, which moved tremendously slow, and use Adobe Premiere, which was something I was not well versed in. It was something I just barely learned. So this is one of the few times I used Adobe Premiere for a project. It might just be because I'm used to Final Cut, but I feel that Adobe is not that good with sound. I had a lot of trouble with the sound in Detective Schechter, and you can see that in the video. If you're an editor, you know that sound is distributed through two speakers. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but basically sound gets pumped out of the left side of a speaker, sound gets pumped out of the right side of a speaker. If you're wearing headphones, sound gets pumped into the left earphones, sound gets pumped into the right earphone. For some weird reason, there were certain days when I recorded with this school equipment and it was broken on one side and would only output sound on one side, and you can see that now when you watch the videos. It's bad. There was a lot of bad mixing. It was just way too quiet, and it shouldn't have been quiet. I think that has to do with both the equipment we used and Adobe, because people were speaking at normal talking volumes, and when I used my own equipment, it picked it up just fine, but when it used school equipment, it came in very fuzzy, it came in pretty bad, and I used my own equipment as a backup, and sometimes that backup failed. It sounds horrible at certain points. Adobe does not let you go above 6 decibels, whereas Final Cut will let you go up to 12, and I remember sitting there thinking, this would sound so good if I could just bring it up to 8 decibels. I feel that in post I was very limited. If you're a fan of The Office, or if you're a fan of stupid comedy, go ahead. Watch this. This was a really fun thing to make. It was really fun, and I love that this worked out. It is one of the videos I've made in 2018 that I really just enjoyed making and I'm proud of. And it's just a good memory to look back on. Zach, you're hilarious. Hannah, you're a great AD. That's assistant director. Adina, you're always great to work with. You have great acting skill. And the three of you, you're just really fun and amazing people. Of course, I love the whole cast. I loved working with all of you, but right now I'm just chalking it up to the head 3.